I'm joined by Steve Sapseed. My name is David Bolton. I'm the Industry Solutions Director for Qlik, covering public sector and healthcare. This call is going to be focusing on the student engagement monitoring solution, which has been developed by BME on the Qlik platform. I'm just going to start off with a bit of housekeeping. So let me just scroll through to the next slide. So all the attendees will be on mute throughout the webinar, but please feel free to post your questions into the Q&A panel on the right-hand side. So if you lose that panel, if you go to full screen and lose it, you just press escape and it will drop straight back in. Please do ask us any questions you'd like throughout the session, and we've made sure we've allowed 5 to 10 minutes at the end to cover those questions as we finish up. So please use the Q&A. The webinar will also be available afterwards as a recording with the on-demand service through the Qlik.com website. So if any of your colleagues would like to watch this, or you don't, or you'd like to review it, then it will be available on demand afterwards. So just to start off, I wanted to talk through the agenda. I'm going to start with a brief introduction to Qlik platform for those that aren't familiar with the company and the product, followed by a bit of information around the work we're doing in higher education, and also talking about the academic program that we've now put into place. I'm then going to pass over to Steve Sapseed from BME, who's going to talk through the solution, specifically around student engagement, some of the measurements that they use, the identification processes for at-risk students, and the engagement weighting factors that all form a part of that Qlik solution. So relatively short introduction, maybe 5–10 minutes at the most, and then hand over to Steve for really the meat of the call today. So for those that aren't familiar with Qlik, Qlik is an analytics platform, and we say for everyone. It's for every user within the organization, every business user. It's a single platform that supports the whole use case of analytics, from centrally managed, deployed, guided analytical applications, right through to kind of self-service and the ability for business users to access all types of information and perform their own analytics, ask their own questions, if you like, of that data. Embedded analytics is a relatively new thing for us. This is about the Qlik Sense product, which has recently been added to the platform and allows businesses to embed analytics into their core processes, enabling better collaboration and reporting, and supporting visualization and more advanced analytics, as some of the things we're going to see in the demonstration today. Importantly, Qlik is a HTML output, so any device, any location, could be on mobile, could be a laptop or a desktop machine. We build once, we deploy anywhere, so we never leave anyone out of the ability to access applications and ask questions of the data. So when we talk about analytics, we generally think of 3 different things. The descriptive, kind of what happened, looking at historical data, almost the rear view mirror approach. Moving through the curve, it goes into more the diagnostic analytics. So why did it happen? Trying to understand the causative factors for things happening within the organization, right through to the final step, which would be around predictive. So what is likely to happen based on trends and the information we're collecting? In most scenarios, business users typically look at the descriptive side. So they're either looking at reports, and that could be kind of traditional reports, printed or otherwise, or Excel-based, or they're perhaps looking at BI-type solutions, trying to understand what's happened within their organization. And that could be, numbers of students attending different courses, could be demographic data, could be all kinds of things that are relevant to the operational running of the organization. The diagnostic and the predictive side have generally, certainly in a historical setting, been the realm of the data scientists. So the guys in the back room, if you like, the IT people, who are really trying to understand the causative factors and the future view of what's going to happen to support with planning and decision making within the organization. So the Qlik platform aims to change that. We are a single platform that supports all 3 of these different aspects of BI, right from descriptive through to predictive analytics. So it really enables people to ask the question, what happened, but not only that, why did it happen, and what's likely to happen in the future? More importantly, we put that capability in the hands of business users throughout. So we don't require technical knowledge or skills within the platform to enable people to utilize these capabilities. And we put visual analytics at the point of decision on any device any technology from a hardware perspective. So it's really about simplifying this whole process of moving from a kind of rear-view mirror approach to looking at what has happened, to looking at the causative factors and what's likely to happen, and helping you to plan and support the future efficiency of the organisation through having that knowledge and that insight from your data. So in terms of higher education, Qlik's used extensively. We have around 350 universities around the world that have utilised Qlik in all types of different business areas and within student records, finance, workforce planning, right across the different solutions within those organisations. In the UK, there's around 40 to 45 universities now using Qlik. And BME have been a core partner in that development of university solutions. So it's exciting today to hear from them about one of their latest solution areas of student engagement. So in terms of other areas we work in, I've talked a bit about student records. That was really one of the early kind of areas that we engage with in universities, trying to make more sense of that data and make it available to a much broader audience within the university to support with planning and to really help drive future planning of courses, staffing requirements, resource allocation, all of those areas. But we've also done a lot of work with finance around spend analytics, looking at forecasting and planning. We've worked with research bodies and researchers within universities, looking at how they can maximise their grant awards and analyse the efficiency of those applications as they go through the process. Student retention has been really critical, certainly in the last few years, and obviously what's driving this student engagement application is really to do with student retention, but Steve's going to talk a lot more about that when I hand over to him in just a few moments. Finally, from me, Qlik has also launched an academic program. So we now offer free Qlik licenses for university professors and researchers, usually at the course leader level, where people want to engage students with modern technology, support their learning through the use of business applications. We've now awarded licenses to more than 200 universities around the world, in fact across 25 different countries, and that number is increasing rapidly. We offer free online resources and training, and it really is about driving excellence through innovative thinking and supporting the use of modern business technology within the curricula. Many of these universities have been embedding Qlik solutions within their course applications and also within their research areas. So it's used extensively in many different ways, and we're very proud to offer the academic program to support that element of work within the higher education space. So on that, I'm going to hand over to Steve Sapseed from BME. He's going to talk a bit more about the student engagement solution. Let me just drag the presenter over to you, Steve, and then you should be able to take over, and we can learn a bit about this great solution you've developed.
Great, thank you, David. My name is Steve Sapseed from BME Solutions. I'm the Software Applications Director here, and thanks for that introduction, David. And my job is to demonstrate and show you the student engagement monitoring solution that we have developed, and we developed it in conjunction with universities, UK universities. A few of them are now implementing the solution at the moment. But in terms of some background, BME have been a partner of Qlik's for 10 years. We've worked with over 30 UK universities to implement Qlik, and we've worked across many of those areas that David mentioned: student records, finance, research, benchmarking, etc. So I'm going to move on to the next slide and just define for us really what student engagement monitoring is. And it's enabling the university to measure and to identify and act on students that are disengaging from their studies. And that's the solution that's what we've tried to sort of keep as our goal. In terms of what the SEM, or abbreviation for Student Engagement Monitoring, because it's a long piece of text, it provides the university with an early identification system to identify students that are struggling academically or personally with their studies. It allows the university to make the appropriate interventions to help students get back on track. Very importantly, it provides an insight as to why students are disengaging. Often it's not the student, it may be a demographic of students, it may be the particular course they're on or timetable. And of course, we're not going to save every student who's disengaging. It allows the university to plan in terms of saving on resources where students are going to disengage. So what does it actually measure, student engagement? Well, it measures lots of things, and this is by no means a finite list of things it measures. But I would say the key items here would be lecture attendance, assignment submission, login to the BLE, library usage, possibly some kind of social participation in clubs or sport. But any data that's been collected, Qlikview could measure. In terms of identifying these students that are at risk, we've developed a sort of an algorithm or rules threshold engine which drives how students are identified. And this is mainly covered through a weightings engine where we apply a particular weighting to courses, to a particular student category, to a particular domicile. And these weightings, a good example of this kind of thing is like a student on a chemistry course may need to attend more lectures than a student on an English literature course, or a student in the third year is obviously at less risk of disengaging than a student in their first year. So we apply these weightings across various dimensions to produce an engagement score. This then produces a traffic lighting system, which allows you to choose to look at students who are disengaging. We apply decay factors as well. So, for example, a student that's attended lectures in the last month is less likely to be at risk than a student who attended a full month of lectures but 2 months ago. And one of the key, if you look at the last point on the slide, one of the real key benefits of the solution for us is it allows you to view the data or the engagement data at any level. There's many solutions out there that may give you an individual student level, but with Qlikview and the way that it's built, you can look at the information by course, by ethnicity, by faculty, by year of study, or at the lowest possible level, which is by student. In terms of setting this all up, most universities already have the data that feeds into a student engagement system. There will be substantially large BLE login files. There will be a record of which students logged on at what time to the network. You'll probably have some kind of library system in place. And many universities, but not all of them, are now investing in these swipe card systems in terms of finding out which students attended lectures. So if you've got all that information, the only inputs that are really required are these weighting factors. And to talk about the types of weightings we apply, they fall into two categories really. The engagement type, so the touch point with the university, is it a lecture? Is it an assignment submission? Is it a library book usage? Or in the second column, does it really pertain more to the type of course they're on? So how important is attending lectures for a particular course? Or how important is assignment submissions based on the week of the year that the student is studying on? Many of you may say, well, we don't know these weightings. Some of our customers have used prior year data to actually calculate these weightings based on students that have successfully engaged in the past. Here's a little bit of free information for you. This came out in the Mirror last year, that most freshers who drop out of university will do it today, the 12th of November 2014. They did a study, and most students, or the highest dropout rate is 8.3 weeks into the first term, and in 2013 there were 26,000 students in the UK that left university and didn't go on to study further, to go on to a further higher education institution. This data is from HESA, and you can see that the numbers are quite substantial in terms of students leaving universities. Now, some universities have a fairly low dropout rate. Some universities have an incredible high dropout rate. If we're looking at £9,000 per student, if you lose 100 students, it's not difficult to see that's almost £1 million in lost revenue. Or if you extrapolate that over 3 years, that's close on £3 million of lost revenue. So the business case to make for student engagement is not a very difficult one. So before we move on to the demo, just to give you an architecture of how the system works, is at the center of this you have the Qlikview, let's call it a traffic lighting system for now, or analysis of student engagement. You've got the student record system, which holds student number, student name, the profile of the student, the course they're on, all the details that you need to preload into the system. You then got your different engagement types, and in the demo we've stuck to just 3 sources of engagement: daily logins, assignment submissions and lecture attendance. The timetabling system will also feed into Qlikview, so we can measure where a student is actually missing lectures or assignments. The weighting factors we brought in, but most importantly, once the data is fed through this application, it will provide whoever looks after student engagement, often personal tutors, university, or the student services team, with a warning system or with an alert system to show them which students, which courses, which demographic are disengaging. So the last slide before the demonstration is we've created a demo model, and we've made certain assumptions. And those assumptions are that we have a fictitious institution with 1,000 students. They all need to attend 2 lectures per week, 10 a.m. on a Monday and 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. They need to submit 1 assignment a week on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. and they are expected to log into the VLE 5 times a week. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my Qlikview screen, and we're now looking at the Qlikview model, the student engagement application or model. I know we have a mixed group of people attending today, so I'm going to just give a 2-minute introduction into how Qlikview works and what you're looking at. At the top of the screen, we have a series of tabs. These would be seen as separate dashboards or separate analysis screens as I move along them. The best thing to imagine is this is a series of web pages, and every time I click on something on the screen, the data changes to reflect what I've clicked on. One of Qlikview's key benefits and what sets it apart from other products is something called, it's an associative engine that underlies the model, which means that if I click on something, for example, trimester 1, it turns green. Anything associated with trimester 1, i.e. the months September to December, turn white. Anything that is not associated with it turns gray. Same thing with weeks here. So I have 3 trimesters with 12, 12, and 13 weeks in it, and trimester 1 happens to have 12 weeks in it. And if I click on something else, the green, white, and gray will change to reflect at what I'm looking at. I can also start from a different place. So if I chose week 33, associative analysis or Qlikview's engine tells me that that falls into the month of June, falls into trimester 3. I also have a navigation bar on the right where I can go back or forward, much like the web in terms of screens and selections I've made. And I've also got a clear selections button, which means that I can clear selections and start from scratch, clear all my selections and start from scratch as well. So if I look at this high-level screen, this entry screen, it tells me that my engagement score is 53% across the university for trimester 1. The prior year score was 50%. This is the profile in terms of months as the engagement score across months. We have 1,000 students at this university and 63 nationalities. If I click on the engagement percentage tab, it then takes me to the next tab in my model. And in fact, all the rest of the tabs are designed in the same way as this tab. Time periods across the top and list boxes or filter boxes on the left-hand side. So every screen you see from now on will have this kind of format. That allows me to make selections. So if I click on European Union, I can see the scores change. It gives me some free information there in terms of I have nobody from the European Union over 40 at my university. But in the center of the screen, I have my visualization of engagement scoring. I have a lecture attendance row, assignments completed row, and a network logins row. Now, at the moment, I'm looking at this across my entire institution. If I choose a particular course, I can see there are 35 students studying accounting and finance. I can look at the nationalities that make up those 35 students. If I click on the UK, I can see that brings it down to 19 students. And here the power of Qlikview comes to the fore. If I click on student number, I can actually see, I haven't included any names, but who those 19 students actually are. So, and my scoring screen up at the top here will change based on those selections that I've made. So I can look at a particular week and I can see the dots move depending on what I have selected there. If I move on to the weightings tab, this is where I can import weightings into Qlikview, and those weightings can be different across courses, departments, domiciles, week. So for example, we have a fairly low score in the first week of the term, or a low weighting for the first week of the term, and the last week, and again for the first week of the next term, because students often may arrive late. So we're not going to penalize them too heavily on missed engagements in those weeks. We have a year of study weighting, and this list isn't set in stone. It is obviously configurable for your particular university. It's not surprising we see that our weighting percentage increases as the student moves on from year 1, 2, 3, because it's perceived that the engagements, they are less at risk the longer they are at the university. And finally, we've actually got our measures for lectures, assignments, and BLE. And these weightings drive percentage engagement for a particular student or course, or whatever dimension I want to look at the information in. I have some high-level gauges here where I can look at, I can cycle between various views of the data. These happen to be sorted from most or from best engagement to least engagement. So my fictitious university, the Faculty of Science scores the best. And I can see this by any dimension I choose. So undergraduates are the best at this university for engaging. They have the best score. foundation degree of the worst score. Or I can even go down to course name. And executive leadership and management happens to be the course which has the best engagement, and if I scroll all the way down to the bottom of the screen, I can see that theology and religion have the worst engagement. Remembering this is a fictitious institution. But the real meat of the model comes in the next two tabs. In the same way, I'll just choose one trimester. In the same way as I cycle through those various dimensions, I can do that here as well. But if I look at, let's say, course name, I can see that accounting and finance has an engagement score of 61%. And I can see the profile running across weeks 1 to 12 there. If I want to isolate that particular course and open up the cross tab, I can now see individual student scores who are on that accounting and finance course. Now this is the aggregated score by student. Remember, there's an engine behind this which is driving how the weighting of that course, whether the student is domiciled in the UK or outside the UK, what particular year they're on. So there's a lot of information going on behind this. If I wanted to see a detailed view of that information, remember Qlikview, we load the data at the lowest possible level, so we can go straight from a aggregated view right down to see each event for a particular student number. So if I look at the first line here, my student number ending in 2, supposed to attend a lecture at 10 o'clock on Monday, the 21st of September, which they missed, so 0 engagement score. So the red and the green simply means either they achieved it or they didn't achieve it. Sometimes that percentage will be a function of the weightings that underlie it, because it's in week 1, it has a fairly low weighting. And I can choose to look at just lectures, or I can choose to look at assignment submissions, and I can choose to look at the information in any way I want to. If I choose a particular student, a new tab pops up, which is a student profile tab, where I can then go and look at a photo of that student, look at all the student's information, the telephone number, the email address, and I can look at each event that that student has either made or missed. So if I'm on the telephone to the student, I have a screen in front of me where I can not only talk about, I can not only view the course or the university as a whole, or an ethnicity group as a whole. I can actually speak to an individual student saying, you missed this event at this time, etc., etc. What is also quite nice to look at is setting parameters for a particular, let's call it a tutor here, who wants to say, well, I would like to see all my students that have an engagement risk of 40% or less. And at the moment, I've selected nothing, so I'm looking across the university, and there are loads of students with that if I scroll down. But if I happen to be in charge of, let's say, the history course, and I type in history, I can see just those students that are on the history course in my class that have an engagement score that needs attention. I can set this back to 100%, and in fact I can sort this list as well if I want to. So going back to my history example, I can see who my best engagers are and who my worst, those 7 engagement people, who my worst engagers are. Not too much left to show yet. So we have, Qlikview has mapping capabilities, so I can see across, let's say, non-European Union. Green dot means good, yellow dot means average, red dot means poor. And of course, I can select and choose at any level. So if I want to isolate just the United States, by moving on to my engagement risk screen, I can see that I have lots of students in the United States with red dots, hence the average engagement for that country is red. And I can look at it by year, and there's no surprise that as I move through year 1, 2, and onwards, the dots change from a combination of red and yellow to green and yellow, because the student is just, year 4 is, they're not going to disengage at that particular level. I can also look at the UK map as well, and let's choose female students between 0 and 21. And if I wanted to look at the Midlands, I can isolate that there. It then shows me by county. I'll look at West Midlands. I can look at, then shows me by town, and I can drill down all the way down to outgoing postcode to see which students are the ones that are at risk. And at any stage, whatever I select here is reflected on any of my other screens. So if I can see that those particular students in that postcode are social work, sociology, and there's 2 students, and that's their engagement score. A lot of people prefer this kind of map, where you can actually view the country codes. If I had to choose non-European Union, I hover over these, it shows me the engagement percentage over there. The last thing I wanted to show was, if we have our lists on the left-hand side here. If there's a dimension in here which we don't have on our list, it's quite easy to search for it. So if I'm going to type in the word law, I can go and find the 2 course names, law and master of law. So at any time, I can search the entire data model for something which I don't have. So if I had to choose law, that model would change straight away, just to reflect the 20 students on my law degree. So in summary, in terms of the model we've designed, and it is being used, and it's been used in a much more complicated way than I've shown you here as well, there is no need for a data warehouse. So we can, Qlikview is a tool which can look at multiple data sources. So we have universities that are looking at library, VLE, lectures, social engagement, all feeding into one model, and all available to be analyzed very seamlessly and very quickly. And I think I'll leave it there. David?
That's great, Steve. Thank you very much. I think that demo was fantastic. I have got some questions that have come in, but I'd also like to encourage people, if there are any questions following the demo, please type them into the Q&A panel on the right-hand side, and I'll work through them with Steve as we go. So, first question that's come in, it relates to the frequency of the data load. So we've got a question here saying, how often are the data feeds updated into the Qlikview application?
Okay, so the data feeds, obviously, the way Qlikview works is you put them on a schedule, and they can be scheduled, I suppose, at sort of 15-minute intervals, or they can be scheduled daily. I would say with student engagement, you're going to want them to be at least scheduled daily, because things change so quickly. If a student has missed 2 weeks of lectures, you want to know about that sooner than later. So there's an automated refresh schedule where it taps into the underlying records in terms of attendance records, and then brings those in. So it needs to be updated quite regularly.
Okay, that's great, thank you. The second question relates to the alerting side, so the kind of proactive piece here. So as the data is loaded in, the question is, if a trigger is met, can an alert be sent to the course leader or the student representative?
Yeah, absolutely. So that example I used earlier where I said that the personal tutor for history had 35 students on his course. If 7 of those students, as was shown there, were at risk of disengaging, or he needed that needed to be brought to his attention, he doesn't need to open up Qlikview to find that out. An email can be sent to that person to say, these are the students. Here's the link into the application, and go and have a look at it. So certainly alerts would be something that we would build into it.
Great. Okay. And the final question from the Q&A panel is relating to the deployment. And the question is, how long does it typically take to deploy this application within a university environment? We're
just about to start a project next month at one of our long-standing university customers. And we've looked at a period of 2 months to actually deploy the solution there. Now, remembering a file which contains every single student's login to the university network, and the student may log in dozens of times during the day, and some of those may be failed logins. There's an incredible amount of data, millions and millions of rows of data, which can be brought into the model. One of our university customers at our recent user day presented their student engagement model, which really has taken them just a few months to actually develop. And there's a lot going on there, and Qlikview really takes that complicated millions of records, and as you've seen, surfaces it in this kind of seamless way. So yeah, I would say 2 months.
Okay, thank you. There's one more question come in, which is, do the users have to install any software on their desktop, or do they access this through a web browser?
It's all accessed through a web browser, and in fact, the application that I've shown you is available to browse through on our website. We have the server we run on our website, so the users would interface with the software by logging onto a particular web address or the server address, and probably even more important than that, the security levels. Somebody who is a personal tutor for history doesn't really want to see or doesn't need to see the data for somebody who's a personal tutor for English literature. So each user, the dashboard is effectively customized or only contains that slice of information that they need to make the decision or to reach out to the student. We may have a scenario where student services, who have a much broader ambit, may have access to every student's engagement record, but a teacher would simply log on and it would recognize their Windows login and say, well, they're responsible for history, and just show them those 35 students that are in their history class.
That's great, Steve. Thank you. So we're coming up towards the end of the time. Unless anyone has any further questions, I'll keep the Q&A open for another few seconds. I think it just remains for me to thank Steve greatly for sharing that demo with us today. I think it's a fantastic solution, and I can see phenomenal applicability across HE organisations certainly within the UK, but probably further afield. If there are any additional questions, please do reach out to us, either to Steve at BME or to myself at Qlik. And we hope you've enjoyed the session today. Thank you very much for attending. Remember, it is available as an on-demand following the session, so you can point colleagues to it who you feel may be interested in the solution. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for attending. Thank you.